Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We are back again with more Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous. Hope all of you had an absolutely fantastic holiday as well. I thought it'd be interesting to kick this year off with what many people have communicated is the most difficult part of this game for them. Crusade Management. A lot of you put this on auto mode. You feel like it's too complicated. You don't understand what you're supposed to do. And I'm hoping I can create a video series that is going to help explain some of this and make this section of the game much easier for you all. We're going to break this down act by act. So it'll basically be acts 2, 3, and then 5 that will hopefully give you all the information that you need. As always, if you have some questions regarding the content that is not answered in the video, just leave them down below and I'll be happy to get to them. Okay, so this is basically the beginning of Act 2. We've had the conversation with the person who basically put you in charge of the Crusader army already. So now you have full control over the camp and you're basically able to do what you want to do. So the first thing that I would recommend is that you go over and talk to Irabeth. And when you go over and talk to Irabeth, you'll see an option here that says, we need reinforcements. Can you get us more soldiers? Go ahead and select this and she'll say she can, but you need to pay 7,500 gold coins in order to do this. Go ahead and do this. It's well worth your time. All right, once that's done, let's flip over into you going out into the map. All right, so now you're out and about in the global map. First thing that you'll see up here, you've got two tags. Blue tag, or blue flag rather, is for you controlling your actual people and running around in the map. This other one is for you to control your Crusader armies that you are in charge of. Now, if you've played Kingmaker before and dealt with kingdom management, you might be worried about if there's a time limit or if time is a huge factor in this situation. It is not, at least not to the degree that it was in Kingmaker. In Kingmaker, you could flat out fail your game depending upon how long you took to do things in kingdom management. That's not the case in Wrath of the Righteous. You could take a long time and it'll negatively hurt your morale, but it won't cause you to flat out fail your game. So morale determines the growth of your trainable units and the growth of the resources that you use to get more trainable units, which isn't really a big deal now, but it'll become a much bigger deal in Act 3. So I'm going to really save a more robust discussion about how morale affects you for our Act 3 video. For now, we'll just ignore this and say you don't really have to worry about it all that much. All right, but now you can see that we have two different Crusader armies that we can deal with. And the reason for that is that you paid that money to Irabeth. So the game is going to add for you another 100 footmen. And as you can see here, if we expand it, footmen do damage 4 through 9. It's melee with a short sword, 1d6 plus 3. Okay, so they're your basic infantry. And then regardless of whether or not you talk with Irabeth, you're going to get this starting army unit. Okay, so you're going to have 100 footmen, 50 archers, and then you get 20 clerics as well. Because these are really the only units that you get, I'm not going to have a discussion right now about which units are better or which ones you should really be focusing on. That becomes a much bigger deal in Act 3. For now, you kind of just have to use what you got. So you can combine different units. So if we move this up, when two units are on the same circle, you can go ahead and click this button to combine them. And then if they're of the same type, you can just switch them over and they'll combine to be in the same unit. So how high you can stack these units determines the amount of damage they can do or how effective they are at what they're supposed to do. You can also move them around on this grid. So I prefer moving my frontliners up and then having my archers in the back, and then that basically determines where on the map they're going to be positioned when a fight starts. So you'll also see that there are some general attributes for the army. So the foot icon is for movement points. So it determines how quickly you can move across the map. Then there's morale. Again, it doesn't really matter that much. We'll talk about it in Act 3 when it matters much more. And then army strength. So this is the strength of your army in comparison with the demon armies that you're going to come in contact with. We'll get more into that as we move across the map and get more into combat. And then you have army size. So you can actually increase the amount of units you can have in your army as the game goes on. So this is going to let you know how many units you have access to. And then finally, you have army perception. So basically, the army is going to take the perception of your party and then use that when it's going across the global map to reveal hidden locations and places that you can visit, so that you can honestly have a lot of this stuff mapped out before your actual people get over into that area. So this is yet another reason why it's very, very useful to have high perception for your group, because it impacts you and helps you both when you're walking around in the world and for your commander army when it's going up against these demon armies. All right, now if we go back into your army, what you're definitely going to want to do as well is assign a general. Now, there are many different general options and they all play a little bit differently, but essentially what you want to look at is this symbol in the upper left, which is going to tell you what type of general it is. So some generals specialize in melee combat. Some generals specialize in ranged combat. Some generals specialize in magic. By far, I believe it's easiest to get through Crusade Management if your general specializes in magic, because it's going to give them access to powers that makes it much, much easier for you to take out large groups of enemies on every turn. And so that's definitely what I consistently use and what I would recommend. Now, if you don't like the list of generals that you receive, all you have to do is just click out of this, and then you can press recruit new general again, and it'll give you a brand new list of available generals. So there are two generals that I feel like are really the best to start out with. And so you see that Magister Pilkwell has, he is a mage. You could use him as a mage general. But honestly, the two that I feel like are best are Setsuna Shai. And I feel like he's really the best one to me, because he has two of the most important things for a general right now starting out. One of them is Scorching Ray, which is going to be your best way for your general to deal damage. And throughout the game, your general will be your biggest damage dealer. A lot of the units are just for kind of clean up and trying to basically stay alive while you're trying to get to your next general's turn. So it's important that your general has access to really nice damaging powers. And then he also has access to the second most important thing for generals, which is Master of Maneuver. Master of Maneuver determines how many units you can have in your army. So the higher this stat is, the more different types of units you can put into your army, and the stronger it's going to become. So being able to get both of these right off the bat is really, really powerful and definitely to your advantage. The other general that I feel like is a really strong choice is Chief Agaboya. And the reason I really like her is, again, she gets Scorching Ray, which is really important for you, but she also gets Spellcraft 1, which is going to give her a +4 bonus to power. And power determines how powerful your magic, the general's magic spells are. And in Act 2, you don't get the ability to do a lot of the things that make the generals really, really powerful. And so with Setsuna Shai, even though it's nice having Scorching Ray, it's not really going to melt enemies down, whereas Chief Agaboya is able to really, really just torch them because she has this increase to power. I still prefer Shai because I prefer just focusing on units, because I feel like they really just turn out to be more powerful in Act 2 for you anyway, but there's not a truly wrong choice there. So with that out the way, let's go ahead and we'll just pick them up. And as you can see, it's going to cost 500 in order to pick them up. You only have 2,000. So we'll go ahead and recruit him. And then you'll see once he's recruited, you now have an extra slot for you to put more units into. So you can recruit units by clicking on the recruit icon in the lower left. Now, for right now, the only units you're able to take are the footmen and the archers, which is again why I mentioned it's not worth going over the different unit options here because there's not really much to choose from. You have to go ahead and use these people. You'll get a new batch of them once per week. So if you look at the top, you'll get an additional 22, an additional 33 that you can recruit if you so choose once per week. And I would definitely recommend in Act 2, you go ahead and recruit them every time you get a chance. But usually I'm able to finish it in enough time where I'm only able to recruit them once, maybe twice. All right, so now if I go ahead and click them, if you look here, it's basically saying that there are 44 of this unit available, and each one is going to cost you 25. So if I go ahead and click, and then you can use this button to say, I want the maximum amount I could possibly get. And because we have 1,500 resources left over, it's going to allow us to pay the full 1,100. So we go ahead and recruit them. And then we're also going to do the same for footmen. But you see, we're only going to be able to get 26 of them, even though there's another 40 available, which means you are going to have to buy more resources out of pocket in order to be able to recruit more footmen. In this case, I would highly recommend you go ahead and do that. Starting out at the highest level possible is going to make this campaign much, much easier for you. So we'll go ahead and pick up, I think we need about, 500, something like that. Not quite. We need 45 more. There we go. Okay, so now you've already combined the two armies that you had, and you have recruited all the units that you could possibly get. So let's go ahead and combine these. And we'll add on to our archers. And we'll add on to our footmen. I prefer to just stack them high as opposed to having two different units of the same type here. I find it much more valuable to make sure that whatever unit it is, when they hit hard. Unfortunately, there's no way for you to increase the amount of clerics that you have. So pretty much throughout Act 2, these are the only ones you stack high, and everyone else, you just ride with it as best you can. All right, now the other thing you can do to make life significantly more easier for you right now is if you go up to the gear option in the upper right, you'll see there's an option that says run the tactical combats automatically. Turn that on. What that's going to do is going to measure the strength of your army in comparison to the demon army you're going to go up against. And it'll let you know if, hey, you're so powerful that you're going to just completely clear this enemy out. So there's no reason for you to fight. So as you can see, it's showing me now you will completely wipe out the enemy. You would have absolutely no losses. We'll just automatically give you the victory, and I can just go ahead and press accept. This is a huge time saver. It means that basically, as long as you are overpowering the army you're going up against, you can just automatically press accept, 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 and you don't have to actually get into battle with them. So this is why it's so important to stack these up as high as possible right from the beginning. You see I'm at level 4. There's a whole lot of level 1s, level 2s, level 3s that I'm just going to be able to automatically wipe out, making this campaign significantly easier for me. Now, you will notice that I had to press OK through a message once I defeated one of the demon armies. So for each army or fort that you're going up against, you're going to get either probably some gold or some materials or sometimes a relic, things of that nature. This becomes a much bigger deal in Act 3. So again, it's something we're going to talk more about then. Now, as you can see, Conundrum Unsolved just got uncovered. So that's the perception of the army coming into play. As it goes through the world map, it'll start picking up these type of locations for you. And now what you'll notice in Act 2 is sometimes when you defeat these armies, you'll also get an additional army as well. So we defeated that army, and they had some rangers that were basically closed in, and now we've rescued them. So they're willing to join our army if we so choose. We have an extra slot, so we can go ahead and bring them in. And then at any point in time, if there's another unit that we prefer, we can always switch them out in whatever way we please. Okay, so now you see that your movement speed is 0, which means you cannot move anymore for that day. So you can either go back to your regular person and continue doing quests or do whatever it is that you wanted to do during this time, or in the upper right, there's a skip day option. Once you skip a day, you're going to get all your movement speed back. And how big this is determined by what your general has, what decisions you've made during Crusade Management, et cetera, et cetera. But every day, you'll be able to essentially move your Crusader army forward. Now, you notice we previously took out demon armies, which have this little figurine on them, but now we've run into a fort, which is different. The demon armies, your piece can walk right past them. Forts have to be cleared by your Crusader army before you're able to move past into that area. So that's why it's very important for you to clear out these as quickly as possible when you know, for whatever reason, whether it be side quest or main story, that this is an area you want to get into. But the process of clearing them is exactly the same. And it's still going to automatically assess whether or not my army is good enough to be able to take them out. And as you can see, it automatically says, hey, there's no question, you would go ahead and be able to do this. Now, of course, sometimes you're going to run into armies that are much closer to your level. And consequently, you're not going to be able to just run them over. But before we do that here, let's go ahead and level up. So as your general gets more experience, they'll be able to level up, and then you'll be able to choose abilities for them as they go along. So for each one of these videos, at the very end, I'll show you what my general looks like at the end of the act, so you can see the decisions that I made, and I'll walk through why I made them, and more specifically, why I pass over other things. So out of these abilities, you can either cause fear to other units. You can use the Shield of Faith, which is going to give more protection to your units. You can use Bless, which is going to increase your unit's ability to attack. Or you can use Bane, which is going to penalize your enemy's ability to attack. I prefer using Bless because it really helps when you're going up against enemies who are immune to fire, like fire demons, for example. So your general is not going to be able to harm them. You want to be able to give your units a leg up to be able to damage those enemy units. And sometimes the enemy units are all melee, so they have to walk across the field before they're able to get to your units. So Bane isn't quite as useful because it's not useful until the enemies are actually in range to be able to harm you. Whereas with Bless, if you're focusing on range units, which I absolutely recommend that you do, it's going to be useful right from the very beginning to help your archers and your rangers or whoever annihilate the enemies and hopefully whittle them down in absence of the general's power. So that's what I choose here. All right. Now we have a level 4 army. Now, as you can see, it still says that I'm victorious, but I would lose some people. Now, it'll tell you what you would lose for your army here, but then it also tells you that some of your units are replenished at the infirmary. So all the generals have basically a hospital ranking, which says that, okay, there's a certain amount of units that would have been injured or harmed during this fight. But depending upon how good or established you are at recuperating these people, you might be able to get them right back. So you see, I got all 20 of my archers, but I only got 33 of my footmen, basically saying your hospital skill, it's not large enough for you to be able to get everyone back. So you could either just accept that and say that, hey, I'll lose one of the footmen, or you can manually fight the battle if that's what you would prefer to do. So I'll just go ahead and accept it, and then you could just move on. So this highlights why I feel like it's really, really nice to have a high hospital stat, because it enables you to essentially punch above your weight, to go up against enemies that, you know, maybe level 5, level 6. And sometimes you can automatically let those battles finish, or even if you manually go into them, if you have a lot of losses while you're manually fighting the battle, it's still going to allow you to take losses that you feel like are acceptable because your hospital stat is letting you get so many of these units back. Hopefully that makes sense. We got another level up. So here is where you have a tough decision. Me personally, I rank power level above everything else. You want your general to have as much power as humanly possible, even though Master of Maneuver is very nice. But this is another reason why Shai is really the best general, because he gets that Master of Maneuver right off the bat, which makes it much easier to go ahead and just let this go and focus on power. Okay, so now I want to show you an example of how these fights can essentially go. So I think I'm around level 6 right now, still in Act 2. And you saw you can't really control the initiative of your army. So sometimes you'll get the first go, sometimes the enemy is able to go first instead. The enemies also will oftentimes have generals, and their generals will have different abilities that can be deployed against you. So you have to consider that when going up against them. Some enemies have the ability to summon in other creatures. So, for example, this swarm was summoned into our fight. Keep in mind that summons can be extremely dangerous. They absolutely can help to wipe out some of your team, but you do not have to defeat summons in order to end the game. So basically, if I take out all of these other units, then the fight will be considered as over. All right. So now I always start with my general and basically taking out whatever enemy I feel like is the one that I want to deal with first. I prefer defeating the Dretch. As you go along in the game, you'll start to get used to the abilities that some of the various enemy units have. I know the Dretches are able to pull out a poison that will immobilize or basically nauseate your unit and prevent them from being able to attack. So I prefer to take them out as soon as possible. And Scorching Ray is going to be absolutely fantastic for doing that. As you can see, I've been stacking up the archers very high, so I have an option about what I want to do next. This Darachni can also use those poison abilities, so I want to take it out as well. But unfortunately, I forgot arrows don't work well against it, so that's also what you have to get a use for. What works well with melee weapons, what works well with ranged weapons, and what works well with magic in particular. Now it's my footman's turn. I might as well just go ahead and interface with him, even though he doesn't do that much damage. And then we have the clerics. Again, you're not able to stack the clerics crazy high, but it's nice to have. So we'll go ahead and smite evil, and then he'll try to do something to the demon. Takes off one, not bad. You can pick up Hell Knight sometime during Act 2. I highly recommend that you go ahead and do that. It's part of the main story. You just, once that main story quest is finished, you have the option about whether or not you're going to add the Hell Knights into your army. Doing that not only is going to give you a party member, but it's also going to unlock them as units, potential units in your army. And they're very, very powerful. As you can see, they can move around a wide area in the map, and they do great damage against demons. So definitely want to make sure you pick them up. And as you can see, he knocks him out with no problem. Okay, so as you can see, enemies defeated several of my units. So as they cut down units, you're going to see this infirmary size bar increase. So this is going back to the hospital skill that you have, which decides the size of your infirmary. So how many soldiers you can essentially heal or bring back to life after a fight. So if this bar is maxed out, that means you're going to lose units on this fight. So basically your goal is not only to win the fight, but win the fight with at least some of this bar left over so that you get all of your units back. All right, now that we're back into it, I think I'm going to burn him down. And as you can see, Scorching Ray is extremely effective. Burn him down with no problem. Now we'll go with Babu. So took out 3 of him as opposed to the footman, which I think was doing 1 at a time. So yeah, he's taking out only 1 again. Cleric will go ahead and help with this. And then the Hell Knight will almost take it out. And then he does more damage, and he does more damage, and that was more damage. No problem. Scorching Ray again. Again, very, very effective. Again, arrows ineffective against it, even if you do it twice, but he was already so low health that it didn't matter. And so as you see, all enemy taken care of, and then we're able to get back all of our people. So that's basically it. That's exactly what you're looking for. And if you follow my steps, it should make the battles in this act significantly easier. And here's how my Crusader army looked at the end of Act 2. So as you can see, I built up the footmen and the archers as high as I could. I kept around the clerics because you start with them, so why not? I picked up the Hell Knights as well. Like I already mentioned, you definitely want to make sure you get them. It's a powerful unit that can move around a lot. And then as far as my general, again, I start with Shy. He automatically comes with Master Maneuver, Scorching Ray, Elemental Protection. I already explained why I took Bless. I took Spellcraft because you want the additional power. Cure Wounds is extremely helpful as well. So sometimes when you're in a fight and your hospital skill is not good enough to overcome the losses that you've taken, it becomes very useful to just directly heal one of your units instead of trying to damage an enemy. It's especially useful if you've whittled the enemy down to one last unit and you know you're about to win anyway, and the whole point is just to try to mitigate your losses instead of actually going for the win, since the end is already pretty secure. Magic Instructor is going to increase the AC and damage of any spellcasting units you have. Ranged combat is king when it comes to Crusade Management, so you want to focus on archers and sorcerers. And for whatever reason, archers do not require a lot of investment in order for them to do great damage. So it's much more to your advantage to focus on spellcasters and picking up the feats that are going to help them do better. Penetrating Strike is just something I threw in there because there were no other good options for that particular level up. Zealous Student is going to give you 10% more experience points. This is actually very, very important because as you level up, you're going to get more of these spellcraft options. You're going to get higher level spells. So when you're using a magic-based general, leveling up as quickly as possible is going to give you tremendous leaps in power. So picking up Zealous Student is definitely useful to you. And then finally at level 7, you get the option to take Fireball. Fireball is going to be your very, very best spell for the vast majority of the game. So basically it's going to do fire damage to a 3x3 area. So imagine if you start out the fight and your general is able to go first in a 3x3 area, you're able to completely melt down enemies. This is extremely useful and can make fights against demon armies that are several levels above you basically trivial because you can deal with them before your units ever have to do anything. So very, very important. So between all of this and the tips that I've already provided you, hopefully I have made Crusade Management and Act 2 significantly easier for you. And I hope all of you enjoyed the video today. If you did, please leave me a like, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.